Well, it was a bad PR move. I agree with you.
Oh.
Yeah.
A funeral procession, like we're going to all die, like we're going to stagger around in the classroom and fall over. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's almost infuriating,
Yeah,
really.
but back to my question. Why is it they're not going back to school?
Good morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. This morning we have Mr. George Myers,
Morning.
Mr. Jim Spodek,
None.
and Dr. Ken Jorgen. And what the heck is going on with Unified here? The school teachers were going to have a parade today about...
That's all they do anymore. They hell with teaching kids. Let's have a parade. Let's hold a funeral.
Well, they're concerned about reopening the schools, apparently.
But I think it's
Oh,
the
hey,
union.
wait, hold a second.
But-
Reopen the schools?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
for? Why?
Yeah, exactly.
What do I do that for?
Well, you know what? Because there's the danger that if they test these kids after they've been not going into school for a long time, and they actually have better results on a test, that's a real danger.
Ooh, that would be.
Yeah,
That could be trouble.
well, you
No,
know,
I understand where there's some people that are feeling unsafe, but I mean, what about the people that work at Menards? And
grocery stores, hospitals.
Yeah,
I mean, they're all.
yeah.
I mean, let's face it. You got to live life. You got to come back to school. Bottom line, you come back to school. It's really the union, I think, that's pushing this.
Living life.
Yeah, living life.
You have to live life. Do you have to do that?
well, it kind of happens automatically if you keep eating once in a while.
Actually, it can be fun doing that too. But
They put out a survey, and they asked questions. Would you do a GoFundMe page? Would we voluntarily go back? I mean, there's a lot of these. It was a PR nightmare. Absolutely stupid. If you're going to put something like this out, I mean, you're going to alienate the community. You've already done it. Unified, personally, I think Unified should be busted up and it should be completely eliminated and go back to smaller schools. And
I think a lot of teachers would agree with you.
I agree. And if we're going to spend $1 billion. Hopefully, we won't. But you're going to spend $1 billion on schools that have janitors sweeping the floors every day that never get dirty. This was I think this was a PR nightmare for them. I think they should just go back to school, go back to the classroom, do your job, and try to recover from what I think has been a disaster for the Unified School District.
what is the problem with them going back? I don't quite get it. Are they really just scared? I mean, or are they just lazy? Or is it something to do with the union?
I don't think they're lazy. Teachers typically aren't lazy. I mean,
I think the teacher.
Some people don't want to. Now, okay, you say teachers typically aren't. Maybe you know more teachers than I do. I don't know. I just know that is a problem in the general labor when they were getting all this unemployment, and the unemployment was as much or more than they were making on the job, and they were actually having trouble getting to go back to work. Why should they go back to work when they could sit home and make as much or more than they were making when they were working?
Well, it's easier, obviously.
It's a great question.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking. Now you're saying it doesn't apply to teachers because teachers all want to work.
I'm saying typically teachers are not lazy people. I mean, they do care about the kids. They stay after school. A lot of times teachers buy materials that they need in the classroom, and they take it out of their own pocket to buy it. So,
what about who are we protecting here, though? Are we protecting?
Well, that's the question.
Are we protecting the teacher? Or are we protecting the union, or the administration? What about the kids? What about the community? What about the
protecting the kids? That's
taxpayer?
utterly crazy because the kids don't get it, and when they do get it, it's very mild. I don't think that any kid. I don't know if they've ever found one that died from it. I remember about.
I'm not
months
even worried
ago,
about COVID for the kids.
guy was on the
George.
radio saying if a kid dies from COVID, it'll be the first one.
Yeah.
If they
I'm
find
not
one.
worried about the COVID part. What I'm saying is the taxpayers are getting ripped off here, and you're not getting those kids back in school where they should be and learning in a teaching environment. This sitting at home, and I mean, I've heard horror stories of what goes on in some of these videos that some of these kids are in their home. Get them back in school, get them structured, and educate those kids. That's your job. That's what the taxpayers are paying for, and that's what should be done. And the union, you know what? You're not real sharp.
Well, it was a bad PR move. I agree with you.
Oh.
Yeah.
a funeral procession, like we're going to all die, like we're going to stagger around in the classroom and fall over. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's almost infuriating.
Yeah,
really.
but back to my question: why is it they're not going back to school, Jim? Do you feel it's because people they are genuinely afraid of getting the COVID and dying, or is it because they're lazy? Now, Doc wants to knock that one out. I'm just leaving it to you. I'm just asking you, Jim. And or is it something to do with the union?
I got a different opinion.
Well,
so
you've
you wanna
already
talk to him?
decided. Yeah, or it's the union, because I'm not sold on your answer as a thing, Doc. You may be right for most teachers. I think you're also right for most workers. This thing about workers not wanting to go back to work because why should they when they're making as much or more by just sitting at home? That's probably
That's
a
good
minority,
economics.
minority of the workers. It's just enough of them that makes it difficult to run that system. You know, it's enough. If you're just missing 10% of the workers, and I could be less than that, could be as little as 5% out of the workforce, all of a sudden it's creating shortages.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't most people are not ready to take a 10% cut in the things they can buy. You know, it'll cause a shortage, and all of a sudden that you haven't got enough for that last 10%, and they're screaming out, and then that starts driving the prices up, and you start getting an inflation. It can cause a lot of problems. So all I'm saying is that the people that are willing to stay home, it was a complaint from employers about not being able to get enough workers back to work because they were better off. They felt they were better off staying at home and not working. And they didn't say all workers. They obviously had some coming back, but they weren't getting enough. And if you're missing 10% of your employees on an assembly line, you got a problem.
Yeah.
You got a problem. And so that's all I'm saying. Is it what do we know yet? Are we sure why the schools aren't reopening?
Well, some of them want to, don't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, your public.
The public schools want to, but the private schools want
right.
to.
Public schools,
it's the government schools that are
it's
they
the
want
union,
to
George. I really truly believe it's the union. I think that union is mismanaged. I think it's poorly run. I think
they think they're defending the workers by telling them to stay home.
They're defending themselves. They're not thinking about kids. They're not thinking about taxpayers. They're thinking about themselves. That's number one, and I can see it.
Are they
all
thinking
over
about
this.
the teachers? You didn't list them in their things.
No.
Well, the survey they sent out, I mean, it's almost like one of these political fundraisers that we've been getting, just tons and tons of. Will you be willing to do this? Does this upset you? Do you think this is a problem? How big of a problem is this? And at the end, it's like, will you do everything that you can to make this happen?
Right.
How much are you going to donate?
Right.
I mean, it's
will you go out and tell your neighbor?
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
So public relations-wise, a very bad move.
Yeah, and if it is the unions, that's very, very sad that they are the ones causing the problem.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you gave a pretty good answer there. I would
Thank you,
I would
George.
say that, yes. And it agrees with Doc too, because Doc says it's not the teachers, and we all agreed that they're not scared.
Well, so I'm sure some of them are concerned, and
They're afraid they're going to go and get infected from one of the students.
Whatever.
Well, I don't know.
I suppose there's some.
But the primary thing is this survey was ill-advised.
So I'm saying it's a possibility they're scared. But if the teachers hopefully are smart enough to have read that the CDC says it doesn't make any difference.
Well, what is the deal now? When is the closures? When is that supposed to expire on a statewide level? When does the state mandate run out?
Now I don't know when the mask mandate. I don't know when. That's quite a while yet. But the school, I believe, is supposed to start opening here now within a week or so.
Really?
Public schools in Racine now. Mm-hmm. So we'll
well,
see.
good. Let's just get them back to work. Let's get
back
kids
to normal.
back to the classroom. I mean,
Yep.
I don't particularly like what they're teaching in there. Sometimes I think they're better off not going to school. But but
damn it, they belong there.
But if they feel like they want it there and the parents want them there, then they should go there. Even if they're getting miseducated. That's the way it goes.
Well, let's move on.
Yes.
We're going to go to the overlay districts. This is a term I had never heard of before you sent me this stuff this morning. Overlay districts. Proposed
when I think of overlays, I
districts.
think of taking something over a map or something that's got.
But it's like putting saran wrap over the leftover macaroni and cheese. That's an overlay.
is an overlay of zoning, conditional use permits. It's an overlay, and what they want to do here, and I'll put the map up, is the access corridors into Racine. Now, not all of them, and how they put this together, I'm not sure how and why, but it's to bring uniformity to these areas. So when you're driving down, say,
Now, we're
Racine
talking about
Street-
uniformity, bringing uniformity to what areas?
Well, Racine
These
Street.
overlays, the
There's-
corridors.
yeah.
These are the access corridors from Milwaukee and Kenosha, and not as much from out west. It's mostly north-south corridors.
Now, the gray areas are the overlays, and I
Yeah,
presume Jim
right.
will have it up on the
Right.
on the screen now. What we're talking about those green places, which seem arbitrarily placed. Some of them make absolutely no sense to me. But the point is, it kind of makes it hard. I know it makes it hard to make changes, but these are supposedly changes that would be detrimental if we made them, right, Jim?
Another
Have I got that
layer
right?
of oversight.
Well, it's
is
an
what it
overlay.
is.
I mean, what they want to do is, if you remember back, George, in Mount Pleasant, Dairy Queen at one time, red, white, and blue Dairy Queens.
I remember that. Made
wanted to
national news, yeah.
they wanted them to paint them an earth tone color, brown, whatever.
That's
that
their
was known
corporate
for-
colors.
Right.
Everybody knows. You
They had a
red,
big
white,
fight.
blue building, you get
Yeah.
an ice cream cone.
Exactly.
Maybe a cheap
But
hot dog.
that was an overlay. That was a district that said you have to fit into this corridor. We want your signage to be so
That
big.
was an overlay?
Yes. That was one of
The
the
red, white, and
requirements.
blue building was an overlay?
They didn't want red, white, and blue. They wanted everything to be earth tone.
That was an overlay area.
Right.
Oh, when you say that was an overlay, you're talking about the area.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So that's an access corridor. So when you drive into town, what they want is everything to be earth tone, the signage to be the same, everything to be very uniform.
They're trying to create an impression then
Correct.
upon
Yeah.
people driving through it that it just supposedly will help benefit the area because the impression will be
These people
that
got their act together.
that we are impressed. Yeah,
Right.
the impression is impressive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what they want to do on Racine Street.
So when I take
State
Hamilton Street between Hamilton and State Street, which I live right next door to, that's right next door to me, and that's State Street. Now State Street there is very drab,
Right,
worn down.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Oh.
just now. That's
Is-
just
is-
now,
is-
George.
is-
It's
is-
going to get better.
No way. But if it's an overlay, is it allowed to get better?
It's,
Well,
it's allowed to
under
get
the
better,
restrictions.
but within the guidelines of the people that are having the oversight.
Correct. That would be city
So
development.
that means they want to kind of keep it drab and run
No,
down.
well,
looking
what they
old.
want is if you're going to go in and do anything to the buildings, you have to come in with a design. Matter of fact, the city is going to tell you you're going to need landscaping, you're going to need certain requirements that we're going to put on this overlay that you are now going to be required to do on this building. Paint colors, landscaping, parking.
But if
blocking.
it's like just north of that little section there, north of Hamilton Street, is this beautifully done yellow and orange building. Definitely Hispanic.
Miyako.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hispanic
Right.
colors.
Chicken
They would
soup. They got
listen.
great chicken
If they
soup.
were in an overlay and they wanted to do that,
That-
they would not be
able to do that.
would not be able to be done.
And maybe
Well, it
that's
might
what,
be able to be done, but only if it's approved. So it's another layer of
Well,
control.
if they come in here and say it's going to be earth tone colors, that's certainly orange.
Well, it's not going to fit with what's on State Street. Not a orange and yellow building.
Well,
it doesn't fit what's on Douglas Avenue. And I go
Here's
by
the
that
thing.
corner about 4 times a day, by the way, and I'm glad it doesn't fit in what that.
I'm
Douglas
I'm
Avenue.
surprised they
It's
allowed it,
nice.
quite honestly. I mean, I like the building. I'm with you.
It is. It brings it out. That was the old Five Corners area. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember
down the street a little
reading
bit
of
from Five
10,
Corners,
15
yeah.
years ago. Yeah, that Five Corners. Always there was trouble there. There was someone getting drunk or shot or whatever. And this building comes right in there. That's right in the corner.
But that doesn't fall. That particularly, that isn't in the overlay district. But
20 feet.
this is I don't put it the camel in the tent. The camel nose in the tent. This is what I think
Yeah.
this is. Here's the problem I see. You put these overlay districts in, you create an environment for businesses to have to maintain and live within these guidelines that they're now putting forth. Nobody's coming to Racine. No business is coming. I don't know if anybody gets that. You know, nobody's coming in and saying, geez, we want to...
Well, this will bring them in.
Well, that's what I mean. It's all these plans that in the past have been 30 years of plans and nothing's happened.
No.
The problem is you're doing the same thing that hasn't worked in the past, and now you're doing it again. And they have no creativity whatsoever of how to draw business in. Now, we've all went through it a few times of how you have to change
Jim, they're
things
not
up.
going to have the creative do that. That business people do that.
I-
That's not the job of government to
Exactly.
have that creativity.
Well, they think it is, George.
Yes, that's
Government
true.
thinks that they're the ones that can operate.
Who's ever
this.
doing, yeah, that's right.
They're going to control it because they know what's good for you and how your business is going to be run, and it's going to look good, and it's going to bring in tourism. George, I remember one time on Douglas Avenue they had a plan where they had tables with umbrellas with somebody out there drinking. I'm thinking, what? The prostitutes are coming down here. Are you kidding me? You're so far away from this tourism idea that you have, but you spent money on it. It's not happening. Start at the bottom. Create an environment that somebody says, hey, I want to be there. Maybe it's street festival. Just cut it loose. Kill the restrictions whatsoever. Let it rip. As long as it's within the law, let it go.
I think some people might actually come to town if they know there's hookers.
Well, be good.
We might even get a political convention here.
Well, you look back in the heydays of Racine. Have you ever seen those pictures? You got the Rialto and the Venetian with those traveling lights, all over, and all down the street. There's big signs and lights, and it says there's action here. There's life. Back in the 70s, they put in a sign restriction, so the only way you could keep those up is if they were already there. You could put up a new one now. And now, I think they're all gone. The only one that's left up there is the flowers, Miller's Flowers.
I asked Jim earlier, what attracts you to a community? When you go out, you're traveling, you stop somewhere, get ice cream or something, what is it that you like to see? Happy people.
Yeah,
You'd like to see people who enjoy where they're living. This ain't going to do that.
No.
That's a good point.
No.
Good point.
And here's the thing with signs. You think Wisconsin Dells, their signage is like really gaudy?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, and Vegas. How would you do in Vegas? So when you come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to keep everything, looking marshmallow," it's gonna attract people.
No,
It doesn't do it. You need life, and that's what you need here. And I'm not I think there's so many different things you can do.
In fact, maybe you folks experience the same thing. When I go into a new town when I don't know, and I'll hit the cookie cutter section, where McDonald's has got their big M sign up, and Best Buy, and all these cookie cutters, and you say, oh, here's where the action is. There's stuff going on here, That would it would be nice if just the individual owners could make the same decision, particularly in downtown. They have some of their best days, I believe, and I think downtown people will corroborate this when they have their sidewalk days, because you see action out there in the street, and you're driving. Oh, look at that! I pull over. Hey, ma'am, I want one of those.
Mm-hmm.
It draws interest. So when you make everything marshmallow, like you're saying, Jim, and just kind of fit in, and it's nice, and no gaudy signage or something like that. I think it's a very yawning type of drive-through. Let's get on to the next.
And you think you're going to attract people with
here.
that? You're not going. You know what you're going to attract it with? Let a street festival come in, and no permits, nothing. Just start it and let it come in, and people can sell tires on the sidewalk, chickens if they want, or tamales. Let it.
That
rip.
would be worthwhile. Just
Come
want
on,
to see that.
chicken and tire
tamales,
outlet.
chickens, and
I'll say
tires.
that.
Boy, I like
I'm
that.
going to tell you something. People will
There's
come
a combination.
and let
for
it
you.
rip.
He's nuts.
You start that way.
But I
and
want to
it'll
go there. Yeah.
I mean, this is
Well,
what
and
you
let
want
the
excitement.
creativity express itself. I mean, people go to these creative people. Typically, will go to an area where it's cheap
Exactly.
because they don't have a lot of money. They got a
Here's the
lot
other
of
thing.
ideas.
Look
They
at
got a lot of
Kenosha's
creativity.
farmers market. Look at our farmers market. Look at Kenosha's. Kenosha's. I mean, it's packed.
Yeah.
All kinds of different things. Now it's a uniform, and they've cut that to a real uniform look. I don't like that. I like it like let it rip.
You should
let
be
it
really,
become
If
just
somebody wants
a
to stick a
people's
Ferris
place.
wheel in there someplace
Absolutely.
too.
What do you think a circus was when they came to town? A circus came in. Hell, it was a big deal. The circus would set up. It had all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It drew people from all over to a town. That's what you want to. That's the environment you want to create. You want to have it a fun, great environment. It doesn't have to be all cookie cutter and marshmallow.
It
looking.
really
Let
does.
it- let it
I
go.
remember back in the 70s when this first came up with the signage thing in downtown Racine. And I remember one guy saying, you're going to kill downtown. He said, when I think of signs, look at New York, he'd look at Broadway, and signs all over the places. There's action, there's life. Come on down here and have some fun. He says, and you're going to get rid of all that in downtown Racine. And I think he was right.
And we're struggling now with the brick and mortar stores when you got, online. brick and mortar, you got to create some environment.
That's right,
you know,
because it's awful easy. If it's going to be boring downtown, I might as well sit home and be bored and just have
stay
stuff
home.
brought to my
Just,
door.
yeah, just look
Listen,
at it.
stay
I'll
home, wash your
order from
hands, and
Amazon.
go
But if
online.
at least, I know it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but if at least if it's interesting down there, you don't know what you're going to see.
People want
downtown.
to associate. People want to socialize. I mean, that's human nature. Create that environment.
I like that guy that was throwing that sign out. People have probably seen if you drive down State Street, down there where Martin Luther King comes down and Marquette goes up. There was a guy out there tossing a sign out and selling his water bottle.
Selling water
And while I'm sitting there at
chips.
this stupid light, they have those lights set way too long, you know. You can come in the middle of the night and the cars waiting for the green light, you know. But at any rate, at least I could see this guy tossing that sign up there. And pretty soon I had some money set aside, so when he was there, I had my dollar ready. I didn't pull out of the pocket. Because I wanted to pay him $1 for some water because it was just kind of interesting to sit and watch this guy toss his sign in there and catch it behind his back and all this type of stuff. I'm just saying, using an example, how this type of environment can make it fun to go downtown.
Yeah.
Just because who knows what's going on downtown? You can't tell. Might be a guy selling balloons.
Yeah, people typically don't want to go to a museum.
No,
I mean,
no, they want to
some
go out
people
and
do
find
it, and
something
museums
interesting.
are interesting, but
They can be interesting.
they're not as entertaining as
Right.
Yeah.
street life. Not at all.
So at any rate, the overlays, we thumbs down on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nothing. You know, it's only going to cause hardship for
Yeah, it did.
business people that want to move in.
The overlay, basically, what it overlay in this instance is another overlay of administrative, another layer of government.
Right.
Yeah, well, look here. You got this highlighted. Projects, what type of projects are reviewed? Well, anything with over 2 living units, office and institutional uses, business uses, recreational industrial uses. I mean, virtually everything is going to be subjected to another layer of review. Why do we need that? You know, I mean, you've got all of these restrictions that are already in place, and then within those restrictions, you got to tighten it up even more. It's just
Exactly.
And how is that going to make people happy and satisfied with their community? And why would people come to some place where it's all, stifled? You don't want to go to a stifled
Because
community.
they honestly believe that this is going to benefit. They honestly believe that.
Oh, life is going to thrive here. Huh?
That's what they believe. And it hasn't worked. It's never worked.
No.
I think one of the ideas, and this is a correct idea, it's better to do something than do nothing. But the thing is sometimes if you just leave it alone, somebody else can come in and do something. And it'll work a lot better than having the government decide that we're the only ones that can do something. And that just is not the case. The government is a very small number of people. I'd rather, if you want to find something original, just let our 78,000 people
Exactly.
open it
With
up
the
to all
human spirit
78,000
to it,
of them, and find you'll probably come up with a lot more ideas than the couple hundred you
And
got
some
down
good
there.
ideas.
All right. Well, the final story is the tax incremental district.
Oh, yes.
They finally
yes.
came out with the figures on this, and there's $320,000 stashed away that has been accumulated.
Is that your area, Doc?
Yeah,
of,
it's
of blight. Your
it's-
blighted area. Okay.
Don't keep saying I'm a blight, George. I'm sensitive about that.
Yeah, I know you are really.
Anyway, they got $320,000. They're going to spend 90 on homeowner repair grants, 90 on property enhancement grants, 108 on new homeowner assistance. That's like if you're going to buy a property, they'll help you with the financing, and $32,000 for administration.
I had a question about that. Now, I don't know. That seems like a lot to me.
10%.
Yeah, 32,000. I'm familiar with real estate. And anytime you buy a car, there's going to be a little amount there for a loan fee. In other words, somebody had to prepare the papers and go to the work of putting the loan together, and so you have to pay that person. But it seems to me it's a lot less than 10%. And when I buy the last cars I bought generally range around $20,000, and I don't remember paying a $2,000 loan fee.
No.
It seems like it's more like $50-$60 for.
Well, usually, George, they have an employee, like the city has an employee, to administer these loans. Like a bank would have a loan officer to administer the loans.
Right.
That loan officer's job is to administer these loans. There are some fees involved with that, depending on how big the loan is, a home loan or whatever it might be. I've seen them up to 3% for FHA loans because they have a reduced interest rate and they have to cover that little reduction that they give to that homeowner. most of the time, the loan officer is paid, and there is some fees to be paid to title companies and to certain areas outside of that loan officer's duties to have that done, and then he administers the loan, and then they obviously keep the loan or sell the loan and collect the interest. These are grants and different things here. These are not complicated loans. These are actually very simple loans. To charge $32,000 on $320,000 is outrageous.
Seems like a lot. Yeah,
Outrageous.
It is outrageous. Okay.
And to say that, where is the employee? So let's just take an example. You've got a bank. You've got a loan officer at that bank. Let's say you pay that bank loan officer $70,000 a year with benefits. That loan officer is his job is to administer these loans. The bank has the money, they approve the loan, they give it to the loan officer, he does the paperwork and puts it out. Now, in this case, let's just say the city has an employee who administers these loans. They're not hiring somebody else, that somebody's still there. He comes in, they pay him $60,000, $70,000 a year to administer these loans. They say, okay, these people are applied for these loans, 20, 30, 40 loans, whatever it might be. Now, Mr. Loan Officer, we're going to pay you an extra $32,000 to administer these. So now you're over $100,000. That's not the way it works. That loan officer in the bank, his job is to make those loans. There may be some small fees that come through title companies and different things, but you don't give another $30,000 to that. So we have a city employee. So basically, this is the extra, the cream, you might say, off of the top. So the taxpayer who has been taken from this taxpayer's pool, your pool, and then decided by the government who gets that money, and then of course that depends on who is in the limelight with the city. They are then given that portion of money.
So that 10% just goes into the general fund, like it just goes.
Where does it go, George? I don't know, George. It's a fee.
It's like a 10% tax on that. You're saying it's going back over to. Well, it's obviously who's ever administrating these things, which are.
But don't we have an employee? Don't we have an employee at the city who administers these?
Yeah, well, you would think somebody would have time to do this. I think the people down in the IT department could handle it. I mean, what the heck are they doing?
But it's just, it's outrageous to me.
Yeah, it just seemed like a lot to me. A loan fee. Now this is not interest on the loan. Now there is no interest on these loans. In fact,
No.
it says here it's listed as a grant.
Well,
You're talking about
if you go for 5 years and
if you go
I
forward
don't-
for
I don't
5
know.
years, then you don't have to pay it back.
Right.
Which amounts to
20% a
kind of
year
a
is
limited
forgiven,
grant. In other words,
basically.
you can't sell it within. And I have done those with some lead abatements.
Right.
I have to I can't sell the property for 5 years. And but if I try and sell it before that, then the share that was paid by the government, I owe. We owe upon sale of the property. All right. So at any rate, I understand that, but it is basically a grant. I don't consider it a.
Well, you got to screw
loan.
up to not keep it.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. Right. So the point is that it's not like when a bank's loaning out money where they have to do a big credit check and they have to make sure that you're credit worthy because they're going to want to be able to get that loan back. This is just dishing out the money. It basically have to come in and what you're going to use the money for. You're going to put a new porch on, or you're going to redo the roof or whatever it is, and then that gets approved. Somebody has to just sign off on it and make sure that it's used for that, and that's basically it. And it just seems like. I mean, if it's a $3,000 roof job, it seems like a lot to pay somebody $300 to make sure the roof is on.
Right.
Well, thanks for being here. It's been a real pleasure spending the morning with you. I hope your coffee was good and your donut was chewy. See you next week.